Hey Reaper Crew, what's up? So, back again with a different story, something new from Reddit. And if you are enjoying the content so far, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying now really hard to get up to 100 subscribers. I just see this as quite a milestone to get up to, so if you could help me in any way, just hit that like button, hit the subscribe, and if you know anyone that may be interested in this type of content, just mention it to them, point them in the right direction. It all does help. So, now, on to today's story. Today's story is called When the Sirens in Our Town Sounds, No One is Allowed to Sleep. Green trees, flowing rivers, and an uncovered landscape. With just a few clouds drifting across the sky, I was free to wander through the fields, only accompanied by chirping birds and a large range of mountains. I had the whole world by my feet to discover an idyllic, peaceful life. One I knew all too well was just a lie. I was quickly dragged out of my dream, kicking and screaming, from the blaring siren filling the air, though it was a procedure I'd gone through 1,000 times before. It still took me a few seconds before I remembered where it was. "Stephen, wake up," I heard my wife call, with worry in her voice. "The kids," I gasped, as I just tried to get my brain into gear. "Are they awake?" We all jumped half-dressed out of bed and rushed down the hall. Any second spent was a second too much to make sure the kids hadn't been awoke by the siren. An immediate wave of relief washed over me as I saw the two boys running towards us. Though they'd awoken in time, they looked absolutely terrified. "Uncle John won't wake, Levi said." I shot my wife a worried look. If he hadn't already awoken by that point, we didn't have much time left to save his life. We followed Levi and Victor as they ran into John's room. Barging inside, there he lay, oblivious to the excessive loud siren ringing in the background. Though we all knew what was about to happen, I wasn't willingly going to let my own children witness the horrors to come. "Go to the safe room," I ordered. "But I want to help Victor bed. Now," I yelled. He was only trying to be useful, but he knew better than to question my orders. Without further argument, he led his younger brother to the safe room in the basement. It was an impossibly bright, uncomfortable room designed to keep us awake during the events. Whenever the siren sounded, we'd rush inside just to wait it out. "Go with them, Joanna. You don't have to be here for this," I said. "I'm staying," she said. At first we just tried to shake him awake, a futile task. As expected, he didn't even acknowledge our presence. He was trapped in a dream that very well may kill him, and we only had a few moments left to pull him out. The last-ditch attempt, I grabbed onto whatever skin I could and twisted until he bruised. Nothing happened. The needle I demanded as a gesture for an emergency pack lying by the bed. Joanna handed it me. I proceeded to violently jab him into his thigh, though they never told us exactly what it contained. We knew it caused undescribable pain, to the measure of last resort to drag him back to consciousness, but John didn't even flinch. "He's not waking up," Joanna said. We were too late. Speechless and out of options, we just stood and braced ourselves for what would inevitably come. Soon thereafter, his abdomen started to split apart, as it splashed, as if it was slashed by a scalpel through butter. Blood spurted out from the new-found orifice, followed by his intestines spilling out onto the bedsheets, shredding themselves as they got exposed to the air. By the time John finally drew his last breath, the most of what remained resembled poorly ground mincemeat. Joanna stood motionless by my side, too broken to even react. She'd been numbed from the many losses we'd experienced in the past years, and another death was just part of the course. While I'd suffered too, the loss of my brother hit me hard. It wasn't until I felt Joanna's embrace before I realised I'd been crying. "Go to the kids," she said. "I'll prepare the room for the sanitation team." Before joining the kids in the safe room, I needed a couple of minutes to get my emotions in check. With the siren blaring non-stop, it was easier said than done. The room itself wasn't much better. With its blinding lights, insane reflective walls, just stepping inside was enough to send a surge of adrenaline through my body, no matter how tired we were. At the moment, none of us was exhausted enough to fall asleep. "Is Uncle John coming?" Levi asked. I just shook my head in response. "He's gone." To further explain the situation wasn't necessary, because even at the age of 8 and 14, they were acquainted with the concept of death. Life in the blue field was one filled with loss, death and fear. It didn't matter who you were, because any one of us could be next. The only mistake John had made was to fall asleep at the wrong time. But Bluefield hadn't always been a dreadful prison of death and despair. Once upon a time it was a place of wonder, hidden away in a secret valley surrounded by exceptionally tall mountains. With only a small village in the vicinity, it was an oddity in itself. The people had chosen to settle down. With its obscurity came the presence of bizarre animals, plants and creatures that didn't exist anywhere else in the world. A magical place fallen into darkness decades earlier. And since death became a constant inhabitant of a home, it was taken off every map and kept secret for decades. I had known how bad it would get. I wouldn't have brought any children into this world. But now that they are there, I have given them my life. I would have given my life for them in a second. The sanitation crew arrived within the hour and quickly boarded the room up. The parts of John's body remained were put into the containment bags and transported to be discarded. Anybody left behind after the event could have been potential vessel and therefore had to be cremated. Once the kids were safe and distracted within the safe room, Joanna and I retreated to the front porch for some fresh air. It was a beautiful night, all things considered, a pitch black with starry sky huge above. It was a sight we'd seen many times before, thousands of lights dancing in the infinity void. So full of possibilities. They had been there as we shared our first kiss and been privy to the moment where we fell in love. But as such, they had also been present during the worst moments, and tonight was one of those. "It's never going to get better, is it?" Joanna asked, barely audible over the siren. I glanced in her direction of the siren, It was coming from an enormous tower in the centre of town, standing 400 feet tall. It was visible from every home. Its origin and original purpose has remained a mystery for over 100 years, and those carrying the secret have long since taken their graves. All we know is that when the siren sounds, everyone has to stay awake. Those unfortunate enough to fall asleep through it are torn to shreds.